Retro Legends, People I Admired Then and Now, Part 1. As a child, and later as a young man, there were many men and women I admired for various reasons. But since I was always most attracted to electronics, and within it, computers, I was especially interested in the people who worked with them. Back then, it was a novelty, shrouded in mystery. I think my generation first came into contact with that technology through arcade machines. In my small town, we had the opportunity to hang out with them only a few times a year at fairs when they were brought there. Only much later did gaming arcades open. It was pure madness among us kids who could hardly wait for our turn at those crowded machines, where, as usual, the older youngsters had the upper hand. It was an incredible feeling and pleasure to move the joysticks and pound on the buttons, trying to avoid an early game over and reach the highest possible level and score. And then, when we managed to get our name onto the high score list of the machine, that was something truly special. Then we found out about those small machines called home computers, on which we could play the same games we played on the arcades. Of course, in our childish minds, we imagined that the graphics and sound were the same as on the arcade machines, until we got our hands on the magazines. Despite the huge difference in quality between the arcades and home computers, it didn't bother us at all. We all desperately wanted to get one. At the same time, various consoles began to appear, such as different versions of Pong, and a bit later the Atari 2600, and even later the NES, Sega, and so on. But most of my generation, like me, got attached to home computers, especially the ZX Spectrum 48K, the popular rubber-keyed one, and later the C64, the so-called fat one. For me, that was something truly special. But when I unexpectedly got my hands on the Galaksija, our domestic computer, a new love was born. I had to find out as much as I could about it, and when I learned the truly incredible story of its creator, I was amazed, and I have admired that man ever since, which still holds true today. Voja Antonić. So, its creator is the famous Vojislav Voja Antonić, and here's what I found about him back then, and later expanded that knowledge thanks to the internet. I won't write his full biography, you can find that online, but rather what personally amazed me. In 1983, he designed the computer Galaksija, one of the first domestic home computers in the former Yugoslavia. In the magazine Računari u vašoj kući, Computers in Your Home, he published instructions for self-assembly of the Galaksija computer. This allowed enthusiasts to build their own computers. It's estimated that around 8,000 people assembled a Galaksija. The Galaksija project had a huge impact on the development of computer culture in then Yugoslavia. It allowed young people to enter the world of programming and electronics. He personally wrote the operating system and the first video games for the Galaksija, the most famous being Galactic War, in the class of Space Invaders and Galaga, and donated the prototype to the Museum of Science and Technology. The importance of this project lies in the fact that, at a time when computer imports and availability were very limited, Galaksija was an affordable alternative and a school for many future programmers and engineers. Besides working on hardware and software, Antonić was also a journalist, writer, and publicist. He wrote books dealing with critical thinking and similar topics. Antonić stands out because he made his ideas available to the wider public instead of commercializing them in a big way. He himself stated that he believed this was the right decision. Now, a few interesting facts about him. Because of import restrictions, Antonić ordered a Z80 microprocessor from the USA and made his first experiments with microcomputers. He said that the hardest part was finding a script for the microprocessor he wanted to work with, and that was why he was most attracted to the Z80, because it had documentation available. In one interview, he said, open quote, "I just wanted to make some modest, simplest, and cheapest computer." It turned out that over 8,000 people wanted one. Close quote. As you can see, he was truly an exceptional man, and what impressed me the most was that he wasn't interested in profit, but in helping as many young people as possible get acquainted with computers and be ready for a new era in which computers became a daily part of our reality. There are few people willing to sacrifice their material gain so that others may benefit. That was from my past and now. People I admire today. David Murray, the 8-bit guy. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, and especially YouTube, I've come across various high-quality videos dealing with the topic of retro computers. One of the most interesting, if not the most interesting of all, is the channel The 8-Bit Guy. The amazing David Murray, creator of The 8-Bit Guy, is an American YouTuber, musician, and programmer known for his channel dedicated to retro computers, 8-bit games, and technology from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. His channel has millions of views and serves as a kind of retro museum for all of us who love the C64, Apple II, Amiga, DOS, and old consoles. What he does on his channel is pure magic. He deals with restoring old computers, repairing, cleaning, refurbishing cases, keyboards, and disk drives, explaining how old computers work under the hood, for example, how the C64 displays colors, how BASIC executes commands, comparing retro systems, ZX Spectrum versus C64, Apple II versus Atari 800, etc., demonstrating old software, music programs, and 8-bit games, creating his own games for old platforms. This man even opened his own arcade. I simply have to say, he literally lives my dream. And then there are his projects, Planet X1, Planet X2, and Planet X3, games he programmed himself, the first for the Commodore VIC-20, the second for the Commodore 64, and the third for old PC computers. All three titles are RTS, real-time strategy games, entirely handmade for these systems, and they show how much can be achieved on old machines. Attack of the Petsai Robots, his most famous project, available on multiple retro platforms, C64, Apple II, Amiga, NES, SNES, and even PC and modern ports. The game uses only Petsai characters for graphics, a brilliant idea combining art and programming. Truly amazing. And that's not all. How about this? David has personally repaired over 100 retro computers, often using tricks he developed over the years, such as whitening yellowed plastic through the RetroBrite process. He started out as a musician. He plays keyboards and composed the music for his own games. He was known as the iBook Guy before renaming his channel to the 8-Bit Guy. He uses real machines, not just emulators. His studio is lined with rows of C64, Amiga, Apple II, Atari ST, and VIC-20 computers. He often demonstrates the difference between then and now. For example, how much RAM cost in 1984 compared to today. He has a unique storytelling style, simple, calm, educational, with a touch of nostalgia and technical knowledge. But he earned my greatest respect in an episode where he restored a Commodore 128 that was truly at the end of its life. When a man of such status, knowledge, and quality publicly admits that he doesn't know everything and that there is always someone smarter, he compared himself to Luke Skywalker and his namesake David, who repairs computers, to Yoda, the teacher who always knows more. That is an undeniable sign of a great character, humility, and exceptional personal quality. That's all for today's first episode of Retro Legends Then and Now. Stay healthy and retro curious.